Our lecture series. For those of you who know IAAC, thank you for being here again. And for those of you who's the first time here, welcome to the Institute. Tonight is a very special night because we are welcoming now a very good friend already, but a very, very important person for us to have tonight. We have accomplished almost a dream to have him here. Theo Jansen will be with us tonight. Let me tell you, I'm sure he doesn't need to be introduced, otherwise you would not be here, all of you, but let me tell you a little bit about him. Theo Jansen has devoted in body and soul to create a new way of life for the last 2 decades. His strand beast, or beach beast, seems so organic and real, they are sometimes confused with huge prehistoric dinosaur skeletons. However, they are made from materials as simple as plastic tubing or tape. Without motors or any kind of assistive technology, Theo Jansen makes these giant structures to life, requiring only the wind and sand from the beach. Engineering, biomechanics, and art come together in his amazing work, taking the concept of kinetic sculpture to its highest level. Everyone who first observed the beauty of these structures by sand moving immediately understood that the work of the engineer, the scientist, and the artist is something very special. Theo Jansen studies the history of biological evolution to equip their new generations of creatures' growing abilities. He himself sets eras or periods for their beasts, which evolve as if they were real dinosaurs. Tonight, he has promised us to, for the first time, premiere something here in Barcelona that he's been working on, which apparently is the newest thing. So we are very much looking forward to this. Thank you very much for being here tonight with us. Please help me welcome Theo Jansen.
Thank you very much. Oh. Thank you very much. I had a tour this afternoon in this institute, and I've seen all what you're working on, and I think we have a lot in common, I would say. We have a lot of the same experimental working methods, just trying and playing with the material and not dictate the material, but that the material dictate you to what to do, and then you will find out what the material, how creative materials can be. Now, I try to make these new forms of life only with one material. Just like the existing forms of life, it's just protein, made of protein. You could say that the creator restricted himself very much in the choice of his materials. He just used protein to make us. You can make eyes with protein, skin. Everything is just one material. And you wouldn't say that if you put an egg in the pan to fry it, and you see that muddy material, that is the ultimate construction material of life. But obviously, when you have millions of years of time, and you try again and again, there comes out something which I call a success. I mean, the way we're sitting here is not bad, is it? I mean, for protein. Okay, millions of years. And the protein, it tries again and again because it reproduces itself. And I walk in the same strategy. I have just one material. This is my protein. And I try to make every form of life with this. And this material came very early in my life, when I was about 11 years old. I had a hobby. And imagine there's an open window somewhere. Okay. close your eyes up there. And so it all started. And so I used to write notes on these letters and put it in bedrooms of girls in the neighborhood. And I never lost this hobby of this tubes. So this tubes is used in houses in Holland for power lines. So it's everywhere on the street. It's very cheap. And so this became very important first because it was cheap, and then because while working with it, I fell in love with it. So I have a strong relationship with this. And I would like to show some video about the last, maybe the beginning of the, where they will go. Do this. No. Please help me. Can I find the DVD somewhere? Oh, that was a trick. Escape. Well, let's talk Espanol.
Life arises from bees which bring pollen from one flower to the other.
Theo Jansen wants to make life, not by the use of pollen or seeds, but by making new creatures. In the computer, it's the numbers which reproduce themselves. In real life, it's biological cells which do the same. So in fact, the numbers are equivalent to the cells. Apart from the numbers in the computer, Theo Jansen recently found another alternative for the biological cell, the electricity tube. With this, you can build structures very quickly. You can build arms and legs, and subject to selection. Reproduction. Selection.
Sometimes the selection and reproduction takes a side road via numbers in the computer. Evolution goes faster in the computer. The result is that the artificial beast finds its most efficient way to move its feet. Eventually, these beasts are going to live in herds on the beaches. Theo Jansen is working hard on this evolution. The mechanical beasts will not get their energy from food, but from the wind. The wind will move feathers on their back, which will drive their feet.
The beast walks sideways on the wet sand of the beach with its nose pointed into the wind. As soon as it walks into either the rolling surf or the dry sand, it stops and walks in the opposite direction. There have been many experiments. Evolution has generated many species. The knees of the Animaris vulgaris sagged a second after it was put on its feet. You could also say that the beast lived for just a second. Most species died out. For some, just parts are left over. A problem for beach animals is the dry sand. There's a chance that they'll get stuck in it. The Animaris speculata was a little beach animal which remained connected to its mother. It was used as a scout in the dry sand. When walking cost too much energy, the little animal would warn its mother, who was able to pull it out again. Another problem was the wind. When storms came up the beach, the animals used special tools to prevent them blowing away. The Animaris arena rolled out a trunk. At its end, a hammer tried to drive a pin into the ground, so that the beach animal was fixed. The Animaris sabulosa had a more secure way to prevent blowing away. It had a spoiler on the front, which would push down the nose. This is the Animaris currens ventosa. Whilst walking, the animals gather sand in the end of their tails. When they reverse their direction, they stretch their tails and throw the sand down. So in the beginning there are just little heaps of sand, but after a few months or even years, the whole beach landscape may well have changed. According to Theo Jansen, these beasts could maintain the Dutch coastline against the rising sea level in the coming century.
I would like to explain the leg system of the beasts. I hope you all can see it a bit. Now, in each beach animal there is a sort of backbone, a spine, and which makes a circular movement like this. And this circular movement here is transformed to a complex movement down there. So you see that the animal puts his foot on the ground. Can you see it in the back as well? And while on the ground, you see that the pencil is drawing more or less a straight line from here to here. And that means that the body of the beast describes a straight line as well. It stays on the same level. Just like the axis of a wheel. The axis of a wheel also stays on the same level. Normally when you walk, you toss up and down, but this leg stays on the same level. And that makes it suitable for the beach because tossing up and down costs a lot of energy, and staying on the same level is a better way of going forward. Now, the curve which is described by the pencil is very much depending on the length of the tubes between the spine and the pencil. So in the beginning, when I started it, I didn't know which proportion of length I needed to get this curve, because if you change a length here, then the pencil can draw a totally different curve. Now, that's why I built a model of this in a computer, and you're all too young to know what an Atari computer is. And so the computer could generate this curve, but still it takes a long time, because imagine that this tube has 10 possible lengths, and this tube has also 10 possible lengths. Then you have already a number of combinations of 10 times 10, so 100 combinations. And with 3 tubes, you have 1,000 combinations. And totally, there are 13 distances which play a role in the shape of this curve. And if the Atari would be on and let pass every possibility, it would be on for 100,000 years. So there are a lot of possibilities. And I had to choose the strategy of evolution to get a quick result. Because that's what happens in evolution. You don't get the most optimum result, but you get there fast. So what I did, there were born in the computer 1,500 legs of these legs with random lengths of tubes. So the pencil draws all kind of curves in the Atari, and at the end there's a selection of the curves, because the curves who look a little bit like this curve, so with a flat bottom, they are selected. So let's say the 100 best ones are selected by the computer, and those are privileged. They're privileged because they may multiply. And that means that the tubes are copied and reassembled to 1,500 new combinations. So you have 1,500 children of the selection, and then the process all starts again. And the computer was on for 100,000 years. It was a month, and so it was a process of selection and reproduction all the time. And at the end there came 13 numbers out of the computer, which were the lengths of the tubes. And the curve was this curve. And I will show to you. Then I built the beast, and it turned out that it worked out that way. Sorry, it had run away a bit. I could catch it. So if you look at the body, you see that the body stays on the same level. And the feet just walk under it. Now, once I found this combination of length, which I call the holy numbers, the 13 holy numbers, because the animals, they walk already more than 20 years on this genetic code, you could say. The 13 numbers is a genetic combination of, and they walk already 20 years on it. In the meantime, there are some guys in Amsterdam, and they found other combinations which work as well, even better. Don't tell anybody. It's they have very good combinations which don't need shoes anymore under their feet, but I'm quite attached to the 13 holy numbers, so everybody can work on which numbers they want, but I keep to my own numbers, just like I stick to the tubes. And so I would like to, there has been an evolution in the last 21 years, and I would like to show the archives of the beasts. So you will see different kinds after this film. So the propeller beasts, they walk best on the wind. They only had problems with turning the other way when they came to the sea. Here you see a herd of animals. And this was a kind that you could take tubes out. So a whole animal has, in fact, 375 tubes. And you could say that they have a genetic code of 375 genes. So each animal is different, and this is a running match to see which combination of length walked best. And then you can copy that genetic code in the losers. And if you keep on going, doing this process, then you have a real evolution on the beach. I didn't have the time to proceed this. In the next image you will see the Animaris ondula, which makes a wave pattern with its legs. Let's see, the wave starts at the right side of the screen and goes to the left. You see it going. And now it goes from the left to the right. Here's an animal busy with pumping up soda bottles. So it's storing the wind. I will tell you about that later. This was the highest animal, the Excelsus. And it had turnable wings, so the wings automatically turned right straight into the wind so they would move. Here you see some very primitive animals, in fact, who just run with the wind. They just run in the same direction as the wind. So once they're stopped, they have to wait until the wind turns, and then they walk again. Here you see the driving system with ski poles. It's pushed forward with a sort of ski sticks under it, and every time it gets a push. This animal runs with the wind as well, for change. In the same direction as the wind coming in. And here you see the ski poles again. So there are 3 of them, but there are also horizontal muscles, which I call. And so they, when the muscles work, they go one by one. 1, 2, 3. And now it walks the other way. And now we get a totally different kind of animal. Still, the 13 holy numbers are in there, and this is a model which I used to gain money to build this very big. So it ended up with a steel animal, which is 5 meters high and weighs 3.2 tons, and it walked quite well on the wind. This is a study in wood. pallet wood, old pallets. Now this looks like electricity tube, plastic tube, but it is steel. So in fact it's the inner skeleton of the big beast. And you see these little wheels here. And those are because the legs don't have the same speed. So this gives some relax between the legs. So later it's received a skin, and it looked quite different from that moment. And the skin was made of polyester. And that's what you see in the next shot. So this is the polyester skin, and you could sit in there. And we tried this out on the airport, and it ran on the wind quite well. In fact, it ran too fast in the wind. It broke itself. And the total weight is 3.2 tons, like a real truck. You think that it's walking on the wind this way, but there are some people pushing here behind the legs. Now, there have been several epochs in beach animal history. So when I started, I used sellotape to make the joints, and that was the period of the sellotape period, per se. And then I discovered these zip ties, tie wraps, you know, and that's what I call the Horda period. And since a few years we live in the Vaporum period, which means that the animals make a sort of steam sounds. Well, we have an important person in the audience. And can you hold this that everybody can see it? Let's see. Hey. What's happening? Thank you very much. So there is a small O-ring on this tube, and it fits exactly into this tube. And yes, it's hard to do this alone. That's why I needed your help. Yes. And then it's just like a pump. And imagine that this pump is connected to the wings, so the wings move in the wind, and it pumps air. And it pumps air not on a bicycle tire, but it pumps air into a soda bottle. Soda bottle. Let's see if I can find this. The story of storing the wind. How do I get out of here? Let me see. DVD. No, I think I do this Español. Guarda al viento. No, what did I do? Sorry. So these are making the pistons. It was done with silicon steel before, and that lasted 3 weeks. They had to dry. So the O-rings are a lot better than the silicon steel. And you have a sort of pump. You can pump up these bottles, and these bottles can have an amazing amount of pressure in there. And when you do this with the wind, you connect it with a wing, then it pumps the air into the bottle. And when you open the bottle, the wind comes out of it. And you can use this wind. This is spare wind. You can use this wind in case that the wind falls away on the beach. And you have a sort of muscle. And you have nerve cells which triggers the muscle. So this is nothing but a valve which opens and then the muscle stretches. And it works just like with us with the reflex. So once you have muscles, you can do a lot of things. So muscles turns out to be very handy in surviving. So you see the nerve cells laying beside it. And here you see the bottles on the worm. And you get a sort of peristaltic movement. Now the worm family, they died out because I don't know why. I think because I didn't have time to work on it anymore, but I'm thinking of reanimating the worm branch of the evolution because they have a big advantage. They're very low and they don't catch that much wind, so they can stay there quite, they're not so much subject of the storms. And you see the bottles up there, the idea was that they go up and down a little bit, and every time they pump a little bit of air into themselves. But it might take a long time before the pressure is enough to move. It might even take a year before it has enough pressure in there. And then it walks for 5 minutes, and then it has to wait another year. You have to be patient when you are in evolution. Now, I would like to demonstrate the nerve cells, and I will explain it very clear for you, that even in the back you will understand how the nerve cell system works. It has two parts, the upper part and the lower part. Now we first take the upper part. If I blow in here, did you hear that? So the air goes in here and comes out of here. This is a connection. But here's a small piston. If I push it in, no air comes out of here. So the airstream is blocked. Understand? Okay. Now we have this small muscle. If I blow in here, this pushes up. So if I connect this, when I blow in here, this airstream is blocked, right? So when air goes in here, no air comes out of there, right? So this is opposite from this. This is the output, this is the input. The output is opposite from the input. If you see this as a person, and this is the mouth, and this is the ear, then the mouth says the opposite from what it hears. So now this is easy, right? This is the person. And because the mouth says the opposite from what it hears, I call this a liar. Now, imagine that you are a liar, and you are a liar, and I'm a liar. And I say to you, yes. And you're a liar. What would you say to Marco Polo. Yeah, yes. You hear yes, and you say no. And you say to me, you hear no, you say, I hear yes, and I say no. So in this conversation of three liars, I changed opinion. I started off with yes, and then I end up with no. That's what you have with an uneven number of liars. You always keep changing your opinion. That's what I call a dynamic system. Now we're going a little bit further. This is a dynamic system. If you have two liars, you keep saying the same thing all the time. You always say yes, the other says no, yes, no. So it stays the same thing. It's a static system. Now, I have three liars here. This is Mr. And this is Marco Polo, and this is me. So we have three liars, and let's see what these liars have to tell to each other. You hear they say yes and no. They say yes and no all the time. So they're just liars. Well, you can interpret it, a yes by a 1 and a no by a 0. In fact, what you see here looks very much like bits in a computer, doesn't it? So in fact, what you're looking at now is the beginning of the brain of the beach animals, because you can do all kind of things with brains, you know that. You can count your steps when you touch the sea, and you count your steps away from the sea. You know where you are on the beach, and you can also make time mechanisms with these sort of liars, which run parallel to the tide, so they know in advance when the tide is coming up and anticipate on that situation. So this is an important step, because we know that brains brought us very far in evolution, and the brains in the beach animals will do the same thing. Now they have also senses. Here is a gadget called the water feeler. Now the water is very dangerous for beach animals, and for you as well, because they drown very easily. And what this water feeler does, this tube is vital for surviving on the beach, because it feels the water. It's sucking air all the time, and as soon as it arrives into the sea, it swallows the water and feels the resistance of the water, and then it switches over a lyre, and then the animal runs out of the sea again. Now we're going to do an experiment now to see if it really works. And this water feeler only works in 50% of the cases, I must say. So if you've seen it working tonight, you're lucky. And we need an indicator that it really felt the water, because we have water here on the table. So I'm gonna pour it in, so that's the sea. And we need an indicator that it really felt the water, and I'm gonna use the nerve cells, the liars, for that. So as soon as this tube touches the water, Thomas, would you like to help me? Yes? Let me see, because this is a very complicated... yes, I don't know yet. Let me see. Yes, I do this. Yes, I do this. So I hang the lyres here. And Thomas, can you keep it this way and don't touch the elastic? Are you okay? This is not very dangerous. Well, I don't know. You'll see. It starts to move in your hands in a few moments. In the meantime, I pour in the sea. Let me see. Yes, don't touch this. Just like that. Yeah, wonderful. You okay? Now I put it. The sea is coming. Yes. You're lucky. Thank you very much. Thomas. Now we're going to talk about a very important part of life, and that is the multiplying of the strand beasts. I've been thinking of multiplying strand beasts, of course, all the time. And the solution would, of course, be that you feed tubes to the animals, and they start working on it, and they make another animal, which is also capable of making other animals. Now, that would work. I'm sure about that. But I need a few more million years to realize it. And I'm 63 now, and maybe I have 20 years more. So I don't think, I'm quite optimistic, but I don't think I can realize this in my lifetime. But behind my back, the strand beasts were already multiplying. And I didn't realize that. But if you look on YouTube, you see lots of beach animals walking. In fact, there are students in the United States, everywhere in the world, in Japan, who are making strand beasts. They know the holy numbers because I published them on my website. And they are making strand beasts. Now, of course you say, well, this is not really multiplying because this is done by people. But then you see it from the wrong perspective. The strand beast, in fact, is a virus. And it came into my mind 21 years ago, and it made me sort of sick. From that moment that it touched my imagination, I couldn't think of anything else but making strand beasts. And ever since this disease is on I give me sleepless nights, and this virus turns out to be epidemic, yes, infective. Other people get infected as well by the same virus, and they force people to make strand beasts. In fact, we are victims. I'm the worst victim, and they use people to multiply. I think strand beasts are not the only beasts who do that. Cars do the same thing. Cars, we are very much depending on cars, but in fact, cars are animals. They use us to make them. And I have some examples. This is a Japanese beast. I see it broke its leg. Oh, a part missing. Oh, let's see. But this is the Japanese version. This is the assembly kit, which is made in Japan. Well, about multiplying, they made 30,000 of these. So it walks on the wind quite well. But we have the multiplying of the strand beast has gone in a new chapter, which you're familiar with. I noticed this afternoon. We have a small beast here, and I need to put it over there. Well, you can guess in the meantime what this is. This is a 3D printed beast, and I don't have to tell you what 3D printing is, because you all know that. Let's see if it really can walk. come on. So this animal, yes, it's a little bit hard to see in the back, but this animal is not assembled, it's born in a 3D printer. And, well, you know how this works. I think this is the, well, I don't want to be too proud. Well, I'm very proud, I must say. Because this is the ultimate example of what 3D printing can do. It can just make animals. And you can download this code in the United States everywhere. And you can have mutations. In fact, there are quite some 3D printed animals already printed, and several kinds. But this, what you see here, is the Adam in the paradise. This is the first 3D printed animal on the world. So I'm gonna put it away soon before you steal it from me. Now, Marta was telling you that I would like to give a debut tonight, and the debut is taken last Monday. So I'm going to show you something which nobody saw before. Just my daughter saw it, because I always show it to her. But first I must say something about the size of the beach animals. Now we go to the size. Let me see. Where's my help here? Because presentation, is that something to do? Where are the videos? Which oh yes, okay, thank you. So first I want to show you what can go wrong on the beach. So this was last May. So this happens a lot. So when I started this beach, I had quite small beasts, which are about 3 meters long, and but when the storm comes, they blow away very easy. So I thought, well, maybe I should make a herd of animals which hold each other. And so I make very big beasts like this one, and they're not easy to handle on the beach. So I worked on it. Well, I just want to show you how it all ended, not to make it. Otherwise you're so depressive to see what all happens. So this is later. So I made changes after that. So what you see here, there, is the wind stomach, which is rolling in front of it. It has an external stomach. And there are ski sticks pushing it. I'm back to the ski sticks again, because it runs better on the soft sand. So big beasts are not easy to handle, but they need to be big, not to be blown away. So I was thinking, I'm working now on small animals, and they have to predict the storms, and once there comes a storm, they have to find each other to hold each other. That's the idea. Now, to find out if a storm is coming, they can do with a pressure meter. So there will be a pressure meter on it, which is consisting of a bottle connected to a tube which makes this shape with water in there. If the atmospheric pressure goes down, then the water goes up in that tube. And there's a water feeler who feels the water coming up. So they know when the pressure of the atmosphere drops, and they think, now we have to watch out because now a storm might come and we have to find each other. But how do they find each other? Well, first they have sensed the sea, and they walked in the direction of the soft sand, and then they have to find another beast. And I made a special construction which moves in the air, with a hook on it, and a tail of another animal, which has also hooks. So once they catch the tail, and they are attached. And I found a system which I can't explain here because I don't know myself completely, is that it unhooks again when the storm is over. Now, I want to show you the system, and that's the very new thing you're going to see, which tries to find the tail of the other animal. So you see the hooks on the front, and it makes a sort of random movement in the air. But this is a repetition. This one makes a longer repetition. So this spring you will see lots of animals which makes these movements and try to find each other's tails. So this was last Monday, and I guess we can have some discussion or questions. Was that the idea? Yes. So if there's a question, and yes, if there's a question, you can ask the question. Yes, please. Yes. The question is, do I look to other animals to generate the movement? No, I didn't. In fact, I tried to forget everything what I know of existing animals. I don't want to imitate somebody else's work. I just want to make a new nature. So I just for mechanical reasons, and they might look like real animals. And it's because one of the criteria to survive in the selection in the Atari computer was that a leg shouldn't stay too long in the air and go to the ground quickly again. So that's what you see the legs doing. They go on the ground and immediately go to the ground again to seek balance and to give support. And that might be the reason that it looks like real animals, because I think real animals do the same thing. They lift up their leg, but fast go to the ground again to give them balance and support. So just for mechanical reasons, they might look like animals. But it's something which happened in evolution as well. If you look at fishes and dolphins, which are now family, well, their movement, one is vertical, but the other one is horizontal, but they have almost the same shape. So they found the same principle both. And so I found, well, I was not looking for it, but I found the same principle as a walking animal. Is this an answer to your question? Okay, thank you. Other questions maybe? Well, you're touching something, because I was thinking about that. Because you can also make small animals which don't look for each other, but just let them tumble and stand up again. And that's something which I'm thinking of, because you can use these pumps and muscles. You can have something which is, when it's laying on its back, a sort of wind turbine which pump up the bottles. And as soon as the wind has turned, it stands up again and walks away again. But very clever guys here in the audience. Other questions?
Yes, have you ever thought about mounting the animal Or have you ever think of it as like wild animal only?
A mountain,
Yeah, be able to ride it.
oh, to ride it,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Like, you know, it's like your concept. It's like you're thinking about animals. So,
Yes.
You know, you could be able to domesticate.
Just like domesticated, yes.
Exactly. Have you ever thought?
Well, in fact, they are domesticated because they can do without me 1 second. But I made a small animal. My son could sit on it, and he could ride the animal. But there are also in the United States there are groups of people who have matches. They have sort of bicycles with legs. This is 13 holy numbers, and they have matches. Who's the fastest running beast. So there are lots of domesticated. Those are steel animals, by the way. And well, steel is a better material for a bicycle, I guess. So they are there. They are domesticated. Yes? Oh, sorry about that. I was pointing at the lady over there, but you'll get a later.
I see this prototype of your legs that is like on one axis. So this prototype of your leg is 2D. No, how could this animal rotate?
Yes.
Because you said the animal can turn towards the wind, so they could. No, but this.
The legs, they don't turn. Now they just can move like sideways. Now that was the wing which could turn. Do you mean that? Yeah, the wing up there was just a solid trunk, you could say, and it was pointed, balancing on one point, and there was a sort of tail effect. So just like a windmill, it turned just the way where the wind was coming from. That's a very technical question. The lady over there, yes.
I'd like to know why the beach? I mean, it is one of the most difficult areas for you to experiment on and beginning. So you're still in the beach and with such heavy winds blowing, what is the reason? If you have chosen better environmental conditions to begin with, but all your experiments are like for the beach.
Yes.
The beach. Why?
Well, there's two answers on that question. The first is the general thing that, but if you eat the wind, then the beach is a good place to live. And the other thing is that the beach is flat. It doesn't have any obstacles. Well, not many. And it needs flat grounds. They don't walk on rocks, the beach animals. So it's flat and there's wind. That's one thing. And the other thing is this project is not only about life in general, it's also about my personal life. I was born almost on the beach. So when I was a young boy, apart from blowing these paper darts, I was spending my time on that beach. So the beach has played a role in my imagination for the rest of my life. So you could find a lot of sand in there. Yeah, so sorry, yes, I'll come back to you later.
Well, I was wondering about the same as what she asked.
Yeah.
And I want to ask why you always look the same level of the body, not to the legs. They always move. They seek the flat line. Why don't they move in different
Heights?
heights? Yes, it's that because of your always structure in the beach. Why not in the rocks on the beach? I think it's a matter of your wind too.
Yes, now, I think if it moves, if it doesn't walk in a straight line, it moves up and down, and that costs a lot of energy. That's, and especially on rock, you need always a feedback. You need to know where the rock is to stand. So there are a lot of electronic devices which can do that. They, of course, in NASA has done a lot of things like that you can walk on uneven grounds. But since there are only flat grounds on the beach, well, the hard part the wet part, I mean, and and there they can walk. And so I don't want to investigate things like the desert or no, it's my personal beach where I was born, which I want to live the animals. Yes? 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 Yes. Well, it's of course it's work, but it's also my life. I mean, living on this beach, of staying on this beach, it's especially when the weather is bad, and we had a rough, bad weather last summer. It was storming all the time. I was the only one on the beach, and I felt like an Eskimo, because then you feel what I think our grandparents has felt when they're alone in nature. And I feel not in the here and now, but more like I'm a part of a whole epoch, a whole time range. And also in the universe, I feel a small part in the big universe. So it's what you ask about life. Then I feel really very amazed that we are all existing.
As I understand, the animal walks like parallel to the seaside, and in case that, for example, the beach turns and it somehow goes to the water, like to the ladder systems, it goes back. But in case of tide, is there any possibility to rescue for him or to go down?
Well, the thing is that they always have to run with their nose into the wind, sideways, and between the water and the dry sand. And if the wind comes out of the sea, it walks in the parallel to it. And as soon as it arrives into the sea, well, the ideal situation for me would be that when they arrive into the sea and they feel the water, that they count their steps away from the sea, and that they know that the sea is coming when they're coming back, so they don't go in there. And when there's the tide, they feel the water again, and then they go a little bit less further. But the totally ideal situation is that they have a set of time clocks in them which run parallel to the tide, so they can predict the time and not go there at all. Because every time they go into the sea, they take a risk. Because when they're standing there for longer than 1 minute, their feet are sucked in the sand and they can't move anymore. So it was not a question.
No, it was kind of a question, but maybe another part of the question is, if, for example, it's walking and there is a tide, so he's walking, but the sea is going from the side, not from the part like where he's going. So he cannot move like away from the sea, he can go only forward or back.
Okay, I didn't think of that. Well, then it has to turn, right? Well, we have to rescue him, I guess. Yes, we must find. But they also have, especially if it could stand the storm. If you let it stand in the storm and you don't do anything, you come back and it's all buried in sand, because it attracts sand. The structure attracts sand, so the feet are under the sand. So now I'm working on sort of ski sticks, but every time it has been blowing a long time, it lifts itself a little bit up, so its feet come under sand, so it becomes higher and not being buried. So we have to think of a lot of things, right? But you help me, and you all help me with thinking of new things. And one more question?
We have two more already, so
oh, two more, yes.
cover these two.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a curious question. I would like to know if you get emotionally attached to your creatures. Like if when one dies, what do you feel? What do you think?
What I would say that, of course, I have a relationship with my animals, and it's I dream about them. But I think it's a different kind of emotion than I feel to people or my dog or my children. Or it's I think that's what you call love. Is some for people is, I could say, I'm fascinated by the animals, and they certainly compete with the love for people around me. But it's more a sort of interest, and I'm very happy when they die, because then I can start a new animal. And so I'm not that well. When I see the first animal, of course, I'm a little bit nostalgic. See, wow, that was a long time ago. No, it's not that bad when an animal dies.
I was wondering if you ever tried to develop, instead of a creature that walks around, something that jumps around, maybe with the pumping system and potential system.
That's a round system, or
A creature that instead of walking,
yes,
jump around.
Oh, jump around, yes. Well, especially with the pumps, you can make jumping animals. Sure, you could do that.
Successful? You've had successful.
Well, I think it could be successful because you can make them quite small and low to the ground, or you can combinations have jumping things which hold each other and a whole jumping creature. You see, there's so much to do in the coming 20 years, not only for me, but also for you, because you're still young. What I've seen around here, you have a lot to do. You have to explore all the possibilities of your materials. And I always say that I didn't make the animals. Usually I wake up in the morning and I go to my work with an idea, and I try to realize my idea, and usually I don't succeed in doing that. I fail. 9 of the 10 times I fail what I try to do. So at the end of the day, I go home depressed and go to bed, and in the morning I have a new idea. And very eager on my bicycle to my studio and do the same thing, and then again it doesn't succeed. And if I look back what I've done, I was pushed always to another road by the tubes. So you could say that the border of the curly path which I was walking in the universe of possibilities was not determined by my plans. My plans didn't succeed. It was just determined by the possibility of the tubes. The borders are tubes. So you could say that I didn't make the animals. It's the tubes themselves made them. And I think that's, especially for you, I think this might be a lesson that you should not dictate the material all the time. Don't expect the material to obey your ideas, but try to obey the material. And once you're playing with the material, you will notice that the material, the tubes, start talking to you, and they give you ideas, and they push you in a way, in a very unexpected, surprising way, which you never could think of. So the ideas of the material are often a lot better than our own ideas. I would like to enter this, and I would like to wish you a lot of success with this study here, what you do, and the rest of your career, being an architect, whatever you will be, a designer. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Back there. Thomas. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Theo, thank you very much for being here. It's been an honor. I would like to take this occasion to let everybody know that next Thursday night we have again a lecture here at IAAC. It will be by Gregory Epps. He will be talking about the use of industrial robotics for the production of architecture. So I think that will be an interesting lecture too. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.